Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Q&A Day. It's Sleep In Saturday for all the sadhus. We sleep into a ripe 8 o'clock. I actually slept in. I just woke up at 4:30 this morning. That was my sleep in.
All right.
And,
I hope you're sharp.
Huh?
I hope you're sharp today. After that deep merging into the
slumber.
Tamaguna.
We have high standards of waking up around here on Wisdom of the Sages. If you're listening to us on Facebook, welcome to the show. This is our daily study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Saturday is the day we have Q&A Day, where people write in their questions, and you too can write in questions, and you can write in leaving your name, or you can write in leaving it anonymous. That's okay too, because sometimes people don't want their name attached to the question. But you got to write us at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and we try our best to get to them. So hit us up. We're open for questions. How are you, Kaustubha?
Doing good. Happy to be here with you and everybody.
All right. Get comfy here.
Just shifting around.
All righty.
You know,
so what's first?
Well, I was going to say what's first is why don't we let people know who we're going to have on as our special guest tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. We're having Vrinda tomorrow. Vrinda Sheth, who she's a writer of this incredible Ramayan trilogy. And she did it with her mom. She grew up. I've known her since she was a little girl, actually. Mm-hmm. That's how you know you're getting old, when you've known adult friends since they were babies.
And they have babies.
She's married to a good friend of ours, Vishwambar from the Mayapuris.
Yeah.
And she grew up in an ashram her whole life with her parents. Her parents are very sincere, focused spiritualists. And her mother was the artist of this book, and she was the writer of this book, and they combined forces together and have made this very beautiful Ramayan trilogy. So
this was the third volume that's come out now, is that correct?
Yeah, so it's complete now.
So the earlier volumes were award-winning books, right? They're incredibly beautifully illustrated and just great storytelling.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah. Is her mother coming on also?
That I'm yet to find out.
She's a regular listener, you know?
I know. It's
She's
sweet.
Wisdom of the Sages, yeah.
It's very sweet when I find people that are sort of senior to me in their bhakti path listening. I'm very humbled.
So get her on the show.
I feel like I don't have much to offer them, but I appreciate their encouragement.
Okay.
So that's tomorrow, 8 a.m.
Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Another thing is today I will be continuing the Bhakti 101 talks. And that'll be
nice.
We're getting into good stuff. We're digging into some far out stuff now. So we got our foundation last week. So that'll be 2 hours today and 2 hours tomorrow from 1 p.m. Eastern Time till 3 p.m. roughly, like that. Starting at 1 and ending sometime around 3. So please join me. If you If you would like to join that online on Zoom, you can write to wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com to get the secret codes. The secret codes are the same secret codes to get into this. So if you're already into this, you've got it. Just tune in at 1. And if you don't, then write to wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com and Mara will hook you up.
I love how we call them secret codes.
You'd like to hear from someone else? Now
I like it's just become established that they are the secret codes. You need secret codes to get into this club.
Maybe we should call them the hardly secret codes because they're not all that secret.
Let's keep them secret. Because not everybody can get in.
All right. You ready for questions and answers?
Yeah.
All right. Any other announcements we should put out forth? There's a Bhakti recovery group meeting, I'm sure, today, right, Mara?
Yeah, there's a Bhakti recovery group meeting today at 9:30. And tomorrow Silas is doing a Yoga Nidra workshop for our Patreon members at 5 p.m.
Yoga Nidra, that's like this very deep form of relaxation. It's like more relaxing than sleep, they say, right? It's like it's like deep.
Yeah.
Deep sleep.
Okay.
Unless you're like me, who once the class starts, okay, everybody lay down, and then it's like, boom, I'm out until it comes very awkward, and they're like, excuse me, sir, we're closing the yoga studio. You have to leave. And I'm laying on my back, drooling, embarrassing myself. Yeah. Otherwise, Yoga Nidra is like the best thing you can do.
All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now this is a question for the two of us.
Okay.
This is a heart-wrenching question, so I want to sober up a little bit. It really is. It's coming from a lady named Christy Marsden. She sent it to us via email. And so here we go. She says, first of all, I would like to thank each of you for the class. I've been a listener since October 2019, which was before the show became an official podcast, when we called it, what was it, Super Soul Sacred Sangha?
Super Soul Sacred Sangha. That was what we were called in the old days.
Yeah. And then on the 1st of 2020, we put it out as a podcast as Wisdom of the Sages. So she's been listening since before then, since 2 Octobers ago. Along with many others, this class has changed my life for the better. Well, I'm so happy to hear that. Now, she writes some background. She says, I've had so many questions about my life since I was a child. And due to Wisdom of the Sages and Bhakti, many of those questions have been answered. As of late, my quest for answers and understanding of life have become deeper. I'm a 38-year-old mother of 3 that was diagnosed with a genetic heart condition about 14 years ago. I've had many ups and downs with the disease, but up until recently, it has stayed relatively under control. In early December 2020, that just means, a couple months ago, 3 months ago. In early December 2020, I went into atrial fibrillation for the first time, and my life completely changed in that moment. I had many doctors tell me I need a heart transplant, and I have been on a roller coaster of medications as well as some uncomfortable procedures. Many days, it has been difficult just to breathe. I've spent what seems like years, even though it has only been a couple of months, feeling like my life will either end soon or it'll be very hard to live. I'm currently told that a heart transplant will not be needed right now, but maybe in the future. There is hope of medications that can help with symptoms too. Then she says, okay, enough backstory. But what a relevant backstory, huh? I mean,
yeah.
Such a challenge.
I thought she said, well, I'm a mother of 3. What do I do? I was like, oh my God,
That
she's
would
a
be
mother
enough
of
challenge.
3. This poor lady. It's exhausting.
Yeah. Okay. Now she says, let me not get lost. Enough backstory. Okay. I'm new to Bhakti and have much to learn. Luckily, I have a large appetite to follow the path that Krishna leads me on. I believe that Krishna is taking away the material world in a very serious way to show me my path. I now feel lost, especially after just feeling like I was finally on a good path. I have lived many years, probably more than I know, as a dented can. That being said, some days I feel drawn away from this path due to identifying only with my illness. I can tell myself all day long that I am not the body and that I am a pure spirit soul, and I do tell myself this. but it doesn't change the despair I feel when the body I chose and was gifted makes it so hard to live and serve. I meditate on Krishna often, and I tell him that I know I have more to give in this body, and if he will grant me more time to share and love through it. I'm sure that I'm not the only person that listens to the show with chronic illness. Here comes the question. What can you tell those of us that physically, mentally, and emotionally suffer on a daily basis to help us get going, to help us keep going day after day, or sometimes minute after minute? I would love to hear from both Raghunath and Kaustubha. Please read some quotes from the Bhagavatam that we can repeat to ourselves on a daily basis, as well as some specific steps we can follow to stay present and devoted to Krishna when we're in our darkest moments. Suffering has brought me closer to Krishna in many ways, but has pushed me away when I'm physically and mentally suffering. Any practices that Mera, Raghunath, or Kaustubha use in their personal lives to stay connected during traumatic times would be wonderful to hear as well. Overall, I am open to whatever knowledge you would like to share for people like me in hopes that this request can fill the hearts of others as well as myself. What a deep, beautiful, again, heart-wrenching question
vulnerable
from Christy. So why don't you start, Raghu? You have some thoughts on that?
There's another question that's coming up for me, and I'm going to ask her to take some of those answers for her as well. But there are a few, but for this particular question, she wanted a few prayers or statements that I would heartfelt say, or you could tell yourself on a regular basis. First of all, I just want to say, I really hear what you say, and I can't even imagine what you're going through. There's not just your own feeling of impermanence and helplessness, but all that like love and attachment for the children, for the family, that can at any moment be taken away, and then you're concerned about, okay, what are they going to do? Who's going to protect them? How they're going to be taken care of, and all the ripple effect of fears and worries. So I just want to extend my heart out to you first. Without doing that, a lot of these statements can come off very callous. I don't mean to be callous at all. And when we're in a healthy state and we hear all this stuff about deep devotion and trust that the reversals are for you, it's all theory. But for a person like you, now it's 100% practice. So the theory now, which you weren't studying your entire life, is now accelerated to such a degree that that you're forced to apply it or sort of crack. And although you have it immediately, everybody listening to the show, it's about to happen to all of us. And it might happen tomorrow or in 20 years or 40 years. These strong reversals of our material existence is our destiny in the material body. Anyway, I'm going to save it for my next one of my questions today that has a lot to do with this as well. But here's some simple things. Our circumstances are for us. Our circumstances are for us. Thank you, Krishna, for my circumstances. I trust you have a greater plan for me. I trust that this was custom made for the deepening of my connection. I trust that this was custom made for the deepening of my connection, but please help me understand it. Play with those as prayers. And like I said, I'm sitting off in this very privileged position where I'm not in physical pain right now, or I'm not. I don't see how close that I'm into that position. So in my sense, in my brain, I'm feeling so safe now. So it's easier for me to say these things than to actually apply them. But I hope you can get some use out of this. Thank you for sharing that. Kaustubha?
Wow, that was great, Raghunath. Thank you. And in a sense, I have to repeat what you're saying. In other words, it's it's one thing for me to sit here and theorize, but to go through that kind of challenge it's extreme. But you know, I think we can safely say that it's these extremes. It's all the circumstances in our life, and sometimes the intensity of the circumstances are increased, but they're all meant to make us reflective and think about our situation. And if we look at the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita and we look at the philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam, the yoga philosophy, the idea there is that things that are composed of spiritual energy, that's eternal. That means us, the soul. That means God. And things composed of the material energy are temporary and in a sense unreal. They're here one moment and like a phantasmagoria, in the next moment they've changed. And so that means our bodies. That means our possessions. That means even the bodies of the ones that we love, right? They're composed of material energy. And it means that by nature, just a fact of life is that they're constantly shifting, right? And in a certain period of time, they shift into a circumstance that feels comfortable or stable. And we think we can find happiness within it. And then they shift. They move. They change. And suddenly it seems like we're very unstable. This is very difficult. I can't find happiness in this situation. And as a matter of fact, it's very frightening. We feel fear. And so it's very natural for a person in your situation to feel fear. What will happen to me? What will happen to my family? What will happen to my children? How will I provide for them? These are natural, of course, very natural feelings and expressions. And it's not that it's wrong for you to feel them. That's going to come up. But at the same time, this knowledge, this spiritual knowledge, this transcendental knowledge is there to help us in these difficult times. And that intensity, when that volume gets turned up on the intensity of the material circumstances becoming difficult, becoming fearful, it's really, as you're saying, Raghunath, you were saying it's like a special custom made. What do you say? It's custom made for me, right? It's custom made for me to come to deepen to take it beyond the theory and experience it so deeply that something in me dies, right? Something, that part of me that is still prone to illusion, that's still prone to trying to find my truth in what's illusion, to try to find my happiness or my bliss or ultimately, my love in the material. That's going to die. If going through this challenge, if you can see it through the eyes of knowledge, through the eyes of Shastra, through the eyes of Gita, through the eyes of Bhagavatam, then when you come out the other side, or even as you go through it, it's a special custom designed circumstance for you to let that part of yourself die. And it might never die if we don't go through such tests and challenges. And so, as Raghunath was saying, it's easy for me to say that. Now you, with support of a community and with support of friends and family, hopefully you go through it. But in another sense, you go through it alone, right? In another sense, it's you and God there as you go through all these experiences. And so she was asking for some quotes from Bhagavatam. I have a couple. These are famous. For those that are familiar in practicing bhakti and familiar with Bhagavatam, these are often quoted verses, but they're very powerful. They're very deep. And this first one is from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 88, text number, I think I'll read a few. Text number 8 is the one that's often quoted, but I think I'll read 8, 9, and 10. I'll read the Sanskrit to the first one. It's Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. It's Krishna speaking to Yudhishthira. And he says, and Yudhishthira had asked a question. It seems like, he said, it seems like, when you look at Lord Krishna, he's got opulence, he's got crowns, he sometimes lives in palaces, he's, got, beautiful jewelry and so on. And when you look at Lord Shiva, he's like living like with, just like in a loincloth and got nothing, it's like kind of just like, none of that opulence. But when you look at their devotees, when you look at the devotees of Lord Shiva, those that worship him, they seem to get material opulence. And when you look at the devotees of Lord Krishna, it seems like they don't have anything. Right? So why is that? Yudhishthira is asking Krishna. And so Krishna says this. He says, Yasyaham anugrinami harisye tad dhanam shanai tato dhanam tajant yasya svajana dukha dukitam. He says, if I especially favor someone, I gradually deprive them of their wealth. Then the relatives and friends of such a poverty-stricken person abandon them. In this way, they suffer one distress after another. Hold it. Let me get this straight. When you especially favor someone, this is what you do to them?
That's what that's how you favor them. Come on.
Yeah. So it's like, he takes everything away. Now, in the next verse, he says, when they become frustrated, and this is when I'm talking about something dying, part of you dying, part of your attachments dying, and hopefully die, when you go through it, we go through these things on a daily basis, and hopefully every day they can die a little. But when that volume gets turned up and you get this, as Raghunath was saying, this specially custom made and really extreme, and again, I sympathize with the nature of the challenge and the vastness of the challenge that you're going through. But when that gets turned up, hopefully these things can die for good, forever. So he says, when that person becomes frustrated in their attempts to make money and instead befriends my devotees, I bestow my special mercy on them. It says mud anugraham, my special mercy, right? So in other words, when we get it, when that part of us dies that says there is no true happiness in the material realm, true happiness exists in the spiritual realm, I want to search that out and make that the focus of my life. And in order to do that, I befriend the devotees of Krishna. He says, at that point, when you make that shift, he says, I bestow my special mercy upon them. And then in the next verse, text 10, he says, a person who has thus become sober fully realizes the absolute as the highest truth, the most subtle and perfect manifestation of spirit, the transcendental existence without end. In this way, realizing that the supreme truth is the foundation of their own existence, they are freed from the cycle of material life. Right? So yeah, it's a terrifying challenge, I'm sure. But you have support, and you have insight, you have knowledge. And if you pass through this, here's the promise, that it's exactly by facing such very difficult challenges that someone can break the cycle of birth and death and become free of it. So it's see it as an opportunity. Try to see it as an opportunity that for many, many, many lifetimes, one's been going through, still bound in illusion, still going through these ups, still going through these downs, but now you're going through it with a deeper level of understanding and a deeper level of knowledge. And it becomes the point where your relationship with God can become more close and intimate and deep than ever before. And the clarity of your realizations about the nature of spirit as composed to matter will become more profound and real than ever before. And that just brings me to the verse that we quote often. I think even a couple of weeks ago we did with Gauravani. The one, Tattenu kampam susamikshmana, that Lord Brahma prays to Krishna, my dear Lord, one who earnestly awaits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon them, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of their past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances from within the heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become their rightful claim. Right? That's a very powerful verse. These are verses that they're coming from the wisest people with the deepest realizations, and they've been preserved in beautiful poetry for centuries and centuries and centuries and centuries, just to help someone like us, someone like you, pass through this great challenge in life, and not be crushed by it, but actually come out the other end, um, fully manifesting your full spiritual potency. So please stay with us, and please let us know how you're doing, and please, you know, uh, please take that shelter. Take that shelter that's here. Shelter through the wisdom of this tradition.
We're all praying for you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
Kaustubha, thanks for. I want to thank everybody for praying for my mom
Oh, yeah.
yesterday. She fell down. She's 94 years old. Fell down, broke her hip,
How is she doing today?
and she went through surgery and is doing very good. And they're going to actually start working her. They got to rehabilitate, but she's in incredible spirits.
Good. Did she
There's
watch
every
your...
chance that she's going to walk, and she's super healthy. She was actually on the way, believe it or not, my mom was on the way to the gym. Kid you not,
As a
when she
94-year-old.
fell down.
Wow. Did she catch your Rich Roll podcast?
She has a rough time figuring out how to work that iPhone, but
Okay.
I sent it to her. All she had to do is tap it, but
Okay.
She's completely engaged in talking to people. And
Are you ready for the next question?
sure, Prabhu.
Now, I want to ask you a question. This one's coming from Kaustubha Das in New York City, coming via live.
All right, what do you
Okay.
got?
Because I was just thinking, I really enjoyed your Ritual podcast. And
Thanks.
again, we want to welcome people here that are coming over from there. Welcome to Wisdom of the Sages. And but I thought it's wonderful that you're given a platform where you can reach so many people with such a great message, and I love it when I see people really appreciate that message, and I've seen on the different chat boards or whatever, a lot of appreciation for all that you shared. But sometimes, you get these people, I guess they call them trolls, or they got different names for them, right? They got nothing. I don't quite understand I mean, let me put it this way. The thrill that someone gets, the enjoyment that someone can squeeze out from sitting in their home and typing out nasty messages that go out to thousands and thousands of people. It's pitied by the pitiable, as we were saying the other day, right? It really, not even to criticize those people that do that, or to try to put them down, but when I look at that, I say, actually, it's very sad. But it must be very difficult. I saw some comments like that about this latest thing. I remember it seemed to be more when I remember when you did the Joe Rogan thing, and it was like lots of people were like, this guy's incredible, he's amazing, and then other people were just like saying it was just either love or hate kind of thing.
Real crass.
Yeah. But in one sense, when you do something that's high profile like that, you're dealing with it on a high level, and it intensifies it. We all deal with it on some level in life where people are critical of us. So I just wanted to hear from you. How do you, as a Bhakti-yogi practitioner, deal with that type of criticism, often very unfair? This isn't constructive criticism. This is just unfair. People trying to drag you down and
Throw a
get
rock
nasty.
at your head.
Yeah. How do you deal with it?
That's a great question. I will say that as a Bhakti-yogi practitioner and person who imbibes this philosophy, it tells us more about that person than it says about me. It tells us more about that person. That being said, I'm not so evolved, and there is a strong desire to be loved. And when you hear people just like cruel for the sake of being cruel, it does affect the heart a little bit. At the same time, I'm not supposed to according to like our life and our philosophy and how we want to live. I'm not supposed to live in that place. And that's a very difficult thing to do because there is such a strong desire to be loved. And all of a sudden, this guy you don't even know hates you, makes fun of you, cuts you down or publicly. And so I will say, to the degree that I'm attached to that, I'm off my path. To the degree that I'm attached to how they feel about me, what they think about me, I'm off my spiritual path. Now, the interesting thing is the converse is true too. If I'm thinking, yeah, this guy loves me. She loves me. Oh, he said something really nice. If I'm attached to that praise, I'm off my path as well. So that it's really easy to get attached to the praise, and you could be like, oh, thank you very much. You're very kind. You're very kind. But if I'm actually very attached to it, that's a problem. I actually used this example yesterday in yoga class that, when in Bhakti, we have an offering to do, and it's unique for all of us. We are meant to offer our words, our thoughts, our actions to the divine in service. And we're supposed to be very, very finely tuned and focused and moving straight ahead like a bullet train. That's how I look at it. And whenever there's a train, you're going to get dogs that bark at the train. The train doesn't stop and say, come on, dog, stop barking. The train's like going right through the town. At the same time, everyone's like, what a beautiful train. Oh, look at that train. You don't stop and say, hey, thanks. It is a nice train. And I've been working on this train. You nod your head and you keep going through. So because I am embodied, that can affect me. Even if there's 1,000 nice things and one bad one, that one bad one will stay lodged in the heart longer. But I set some red flags up that if I get affected by it, Raghunath, you're off your path. That's just the red flag. That's the accountability I have with myself. But it's a good question because those things can really trip you up. I can see how in my past, especially in the music scene, you get this all the time. You get people who are just ruthless.
Were there people that didn't appreciate your musical contribution?
There's people that really appreciated it. And in the same sense, there's people that hate you for no reason. I mean, there's a lot of hate in people. I was saying this on the Ritual podcast that, somebody walks in the door and you could say, who's this ass? Who's this jackass? We hate people we don't even know. We hate them for the way they look or the way they dress or their hair. It's like there is a lot of hate in us. And part of, so we notice it in other people and we don't get offended by it either. We try not to get offended by it. And we try to be like compassionate towards people because that hate is killing them. It's like you want to throw a rock at me. Imagine you pick up a fiery coal. Or sometimes you're at a campfire and you touch one of the rocks by the fire. The rock itself is incredibly hot. So whenever we hate, it's like trying to throw a rock at somebody, but it's burning our own hand. So in one sense, truth, if you want the honest truth, I was bothered by it last night because there were some people that wrote some things, and I just prayed for those people. I just, you counteract that Maya by praying for the very people that have issues with you. That's how I deal with it. Does that make any sense?
Of course. It makes very good sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Can I ask you a question?
I appreciate your answer. No. Yeah, ask me one. Hit me.
All right. What is the difference? The line between not
from?
whining.
So slow down. Hope. Who's asking the question?
This is from Kamalakshi Radhika via our Zoom chat board.
Okay.
What's the difference or the line between not whining, yet identifying and examining the emotion so that it can be purified? Sometimes we need to talk to someone about what's going on so that we can get feedback. If Raghunath Swami does that, it is easy to see that his non-response is the feedback for Kaustubha Prabhu, a given level of advancement in history and personal relationship with Raghunath Swami. That is totally enough and appropriate to understand, but that may not be enough for everyone.
Okay. So I think we should explain that. That's in reference
Yeah.
to, I brought that up a few weeks ago or so. I don't remember exactly when, but I think I was sharing a story where I was had some private time with Radhanath Swami, and we're talking on different subjects. And I'm speaking, he's responsive, and we're going back and forth. It's a active dialogue, that's moving in a direction, and so on. And it's a certain point in that dialogue. It was probably a dialogue that was dealing with different, difficulties or circumstances or relationships, and trying to do what's best, improve the situation, serve. And at a certain point in that dialogue, I turned it to like how I had been personally hurt, how I felt,
Right.
personal hurt, and what Kamala Lakshmi Radhika is saying here, people should be able to express I felt hurt by this, and or whatever. We're not against that necessarily, but in that conversation, when I went that direction, he immediately changed the subject, and just like he didn't even entertain. I said, and then there's this and that, and frankly, it's quite hurtful, and it just boom, he just like switched it 100%.
Mm.
And it made me introspective, right? Like what was I really? Where was my mind and heart at when I was bringing this in? And as the more that I thought about it, my realization was at one point in that conversation, I was talking about difficulties in a practical way of how we can serve and how we can make things better. And in the next moment, I shifted, and therefore he shifted, right? I shifted to something like wanting, kind of putting myself in my own, the glories of myself going through the suffering or something like that, right? We try to enjoy, just like we're in the last question I just asked you, we might try to squeeze some juice out of like saying terrible things about people that we don't even know on the internet, right? It's like,
Sure.
my God, where are we going? But we also try to squeeze some flavor, some juice out of like, everyone recognize my suffering and how special I am, And he wasn't willing to entertain that for even a second. And I saw that as a way of indicating to me how to go deeper and purify, my own mind and where it wants to go, So Kamalakshi Radhika is saying here that, okay, that's fine, but and again, she says, what's the difference? The line between not whining on one side, and on the other side of the line, examining the emotion so that it can be purified.
Mm.
Sometimes we need to talk about these things. That's a line that's not, these kind of lines in life aren't just drawn out in big red lines for us. They require introspection. It's a great question. I think if we want to practice spirituality for real, if we want to practice it in a way that's deeply transformative, not just a fashion, not just a social kind of thing, not just a pose or a facade, but if we want for our spiritual practice to be real and transformational, what it requires is a very deep sense of honesty with oneself, or a very deep sense of sincerity. I was reminded of, it was in that Rich Roll podcast, I think, that you spoke about Satyaraj and what he told you about playing guitar.
Oh yeah.
Is that there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Which I thought was a great example, where you put, the line is gray, right? Like, he said he'd given up playing guitar, which he was really into, before he became a practicing yogi. And you're saying, but hold it, Bhagavad Gita tells us that we can take our talents and our abilities, our aptitudes, and rather than give them up, they can be applied in wonderful ways and used as service, right? So why would you possibly do that? And what he you were kind of presenting like, here's the line. It was drawn in a nice red line for us, like.
And he was encouraging me to continue doing music.
Okay, and even he was encouraging you to, but in his own case, he had handled it a different way. The line was and when you looked at it, you said, but what about the line? There was a nice clear divider here.
Yeah, there's a discrepancy here. Why do I follow this rule and you don't follow this rule?
Yeah, and his answer, it really got, in my mind, it really touched very well on this idea of sincerity with oneself, because he could have gone on playing guitar and justified it to anyone that asked about it by saying, well, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you can do this, you can do that. But what he did was he said to you, okay, I get your point, but think about this. Now be honest with yourself. Think about this. Next time you're on stage and, people are cheering and you're doing your song and everything like that, really ask yourself, sincerely ask yourself, with the kind of honesty with oneself that's required for advancing spiritually. Ask yourself, am I doing this to serve God, or am I doing this to be God? Right? And when you ask yourself that question, that's a very powerful question, right? That question has the potential, if you really approach it, to really dig deep into the self and purify the self. Right? Why am I doing this? So for me, this kind of, it's the same kind of principle here. The word sincerity is an interesting word. It's I pulled a little something out of the dictionary here. It says sincere, first recorded in English in the 1530s, is from the Latin word sincerus, which means clean or pure. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word sincere evolved from the Spanish sincera, which literally means, do you know, Roga?
Without wax.
Without wax.
I know this.
That's right. And so what that means, from what I've heard, is that, like, when you sell marble, when you dig for marble or mine for marble, so marble's incredible stuff, right? It's this like really beautiful stone that's deep down there in the ground, and you can, use it in so many nice ways. And commonly marble has those grains through it, right? Or those
veins.
Well,
yeah,
veins,
beautiful
with
veins.
different colors. But sometimes you want like purely white marble, right? To, like, say you want to make a statue or something like that, and you don't want those, you want purely white marble. And it's very rare to find any marble that's like purely white. And so sometimes what some marble salesmen might do, unethically, right, is they would carve out that colored vein and then fill it in with wax. Right. So when you come and you're looking at all the marble, you don't even notice that it's not entirely pure, that there's wax in there, right? That is kind of just covering up the flaw that's there, rather than, And so sincere means without wax. It means that it's actually pure. There's no dishonesty, even dishonesty with oneself, but that one's motive is entirely pure. So in answer to the question, it's I can't draw a line. I can't, but I can give a principle. And that principle is, we really need to develop the ability to look at ourselves honestly and ask ourselves, why am I bringing this up? Is it so that I can serve better, or is it so that I can do the opposite and kind of like become the center of attention and in one sense, like feel special or something like that, because I've suffered so much, So it's not.
I appreciate your philology.
What do you call it?
Philology.
Philology. What is that? The origin of words and stuff? Is that the origin of words or something like that?
Origin of words.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I hope that's helpful. Are you ready for your next question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is coming from Jeffrey Ackler.
Okay. This is tying in with Christie's, I find.
Okay. Christie's here with us too, I just saw. So
Christie.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. This is from Jeffrey Ackler. Is the concept, this is via the chat board, is the concept of the retribution of God inconsistent with Bhakti philosophy? Yes or no? Yay or nay, Raghu?
Mayor, pull up a definition of retribution, please.
We're going to need that, right? And as well as God and philosophy.
While we're at it. Concept, perhaps.
Retribution, punishment inflicted on someone as vengeance for a wrong or criminal act.
Yeah. Is God sadistic, basically?
Okay.
We're going through some pain. Christie's going through some intense tribulation. What kind of God is this? How can God be love? This is a great question. This is probably maybe a big atheist argument to this concept of a loving God. In if this is our lifetime, like this is it, this little bubble of existence this is Raghunath and this is life. No, God is unfair. But we don't believe that. We believe that life is eternal. And this is one very thin page out of an encyclopedia of an existence. And that identity as Raghunath, the yoga teacher, or the podcast guy, or whatever else identity, or whatever other hats I wear in this lifetime. It's an identity in a thin page. It's a rental vehicle for one moment in history of eternal time. And although it appears real, it's over in a matter of moments. And the teachings is that there is another place that we're from. And there is an eternal place. I mean, this is the ongoing issue with material existence is we have a deep inherent desire to love eternally. We like things that are eternal, yet everything we're falling in love with is temporary. I lose everything that I love. I love my house. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my dog. Yet what kind of horrible setup is this? Well, it is a total setup if this is all life, if this is all there is to life. But once we opt into material existence, which according to our philosophy, or the philosophy of the Vedas, we've opted in at one time for material existence. How we opted in, that's up to a whole nother discussion, but somehow we've opted in to have a temporary body in an eternal world. And once we opt in, we're in the system, we're in the matrix. And it's got nothing necessarily to do with our spiritual life. It's got to do with our choices that create reactions. It's got to do with our karma. It's got to do with the gunas. And so in Bhakti, we say, take radical responsibility for what you have. Now, some people say, well, that's very, very sad. And it's very, very callous. We're not saying we shouldn't be kind and loving and compassionate to other people in pain. That's part of Bhakti as well. If Kaustubha's in pain, or if Moxie's in pain or Christy's in pain, I want to reach out and extend love and compassion to them. But if I'm in pain, then I have to start taking radical responsibility for what I got. I was saying this on the Ritual podcast as well, too, that our karma plays out in some simple cause and effect. There's pujas you can do, or mantras you can chant, or gods or devis you can worship to counteract them. There's gems you can wear for a malefic planet. But what we got in this world. And as we step into our spiritual existence, we start to see what I was saying to Christy earlier was, it is, well, how did I put that? I liked how I put it because I stole it from my wife. Because my wife put it. How did my wife put this? It was beautiful. A hand, man. Custom made. I trust that this was custom made. Our karma is custom made for our purification and our connection. Because Krishna uniquely loves us. And we have exactly what we need to work through our attachments. Again, this can sound callous, especially if you're in the thick of the thin. But I pulled out this portion of the Krishna Book, which, the Krishna Book is the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, written in a story form. It's when Krishna and Bhima and Arjuna went to fight this really...
When you say it was written in story form, are you talking about the comic books now?
No, it's not comic books, although there's a lot of great colorful pictures in the Krishna Book.
Oh, the Krishna Book, okay.
But they went to, before Maharaj Yudhisthira claimed his supremacy as the emperor, they had to defeat these really horrible kings. And there was one really crazy, psychopathic, homicidal maniac named Jarasandha.
Okay.
And he had this sick, I mean, there's a lot of sick people in the world. This guy used to, whenever they'd conquer an army, he'd keep the king in a dungeon and he collected kings.
That's sick.
That's sick. He collected them kings, and where he was going to do a human sacrifice to Kali Bhairava, this like this ferocious form of Lord Shiva. And so part of Krishna and Bhima killing Jarasandha was really to liberate these kings. And so these kings have been destitute. Their bodies are frail and thin. They look like they're just beggars. And I mean, they were, if you think what a king was, kings have so much. They are the most privileged in one sense. They have everything. We can't imagine the wealth of a king. And now they're reduced to nothing. So you think when they get out of that prison, they're going to be like, it's about time. This was horrible. But they were sort of in deep meditation, and they were obviously very Krishna conscious. And here is what one of the kings said to Krishna. It is by your causeless mercy that we have been released from the imprisonment of Jarasandha. But now we pray that you release us from the imprisonment within the material existence, which is your illusory energy. Please stop our continuous cycle of birth and death. We now have sufficient experience of the miserable material life in which we are fully absorbed. And having tasted its bitterness, we have come to take shelter under your lotus feet. So they're offering this nice prayer. Therefore, please give us your protection. Dear Lord, we can now clearly see, this is big, that Jarasandha was not at fault in the least. What? He imprisoned you. He was going to offer you as a human sacrifice. What do you mean? He was not at fault in the least. It is actually by your causeless mercy that we were bereft of our kingdoms. What? By your mercy, I lost my kingdom? For we were very proud of calling ourselves rulers and kings. The force of the time element, which is your representative, is certainly insurmountable. The time element is so strong that no one can escape its influence. Therefore, we have received the reactions of our own atrocious activities, and we are now bereft of all opulence and stand before you like street beggars. We consider our position, your causeless mercy, your unalloyed mercy upon us, because now we can understand that we were falsely proud and that our material opulence could be withdrawn from us within a second by your will. This is our greatest gain. What? They're seeing their most horrific situation as this is our greatest gain. Dear Lord, everyone knows that the body is a breeding ground of disease. Now we are quite aged, and instead of being proud of our bodily strength, we are getting weaker day by day. We are no longer interested in sense gratification or false happiness derived from the body. By your grace, we have now come to the conclusion that hankering after such material happiness is just like searching for water in the desert. So this perspective is very, very powerful. It's very different than how we look at karma. We're hoping to get some like good karma for our good things. But as like Kaustubha was saying throughout the course of the show, as the Bhagavatam says, that this bhakti practice is not easy. In one sense, it's very simple. Yeah, we're dancing around, we're eating, cooking pakoras, offering them with love, and it's chanting and singing songs. It's the most tough because we're meant to see this actual benediction. Just like we're going through some pain and we're praying that people get through, praying for Christy to get through our pain, praying through our friend Gopal's suffering with cancer right now. We're praying that he makes his way through his cancer. For him and his family. We're praying for my mom, that she gets through this injury. We all have some pain we're going to go through. And as a community, we pray and support that. But we all will have a point where we're going to have to relinquish everything. All of us. No one's going to get a pass from that. And then we have to understand that also, then the page is turning to my new existence. of my of the material forms. And we all have to understand these things start to really purify us, and we start to get disconnected from this world of form and more connected to this world of spirit. And who am I? What do I actually possess? What is actually valuable in my life? You know, what am I doing with my life? Have I been wasting time with my life? All these questions will come up, and we're going to get a chance to live it. And as we heal from whatever we're going through, we get to refine our life. And someday we won't heal from it. And that will crack us to this next level. And both Kaustubha and myself, and maybe some of you, have seen people leave their body in such a condition where they've somehow cracked their material, the material shell, and there's nothing left but their beautiful spiritual self that's very, very deeply connected. So this is a type of radical responsibility that we're asked to accept, and how these kings demonstrated it. And we hear these stories again and again for our benefit, who, if not now, we will be going through this. And at one time, we'll all be going through this. I hope that wasn't too long-winded, Kaustubha.
That was great. It seems like there's a common theme kind of woven throughout today's Q&A.
Yeah.
All right, we're out of time, Bubba.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
We're out of time. We are out of time. Well, I'm sorry if that was very long.
No, it was great. I love that reading. It makes you think about what those kings were talking about with each other while they're down there in that dungeon.
They're just talking about Krishna. Say something.
The professionalism of
Bubba.
I would say everyone that if you'd like to go deeper into this philosophy, I'll be teaching Bhakti 101 today at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You can write to Mara at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com to get the secret codes.
Get those codes, people. Thanks everybody else for joining us today. Please join us here on Zoom if you're listening out there. Tell your friends about the podcast. If you like something we said, write it down, take a little snapshot of it, tag Wisdom of the Sages, we'll repost it. Sometimes it's hearing a little bit of truth that sticks with you that can change a person's day and maybe change their life. Thanks for everybody for staying connected to us. Thanks for all these dedicated Zoomers and dedicated others. Let's do this every day. Let's just hear the Bhagavatam, do the 30-day Bhagavatam challenge, listen to Wisdom of the Sages for 30 days straight and see how it changes the trajectory of our life.
Oh, that's an interesting.
If you like what we're doing, patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages. You can give any monthly contribution of your choice, and you get access to our whole yoga school, yoga academy on Patreon. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Now it's time for a dance party.